Hello, good people. Welcome to our biology lessons. This is yet another topic, a very important topic that I want us to go through. It's a bit interesting, a topic that most learners will tend to run away from. And now in this video and a few other videos that I will be combining in the same playlists, I would want you to follow me so that I demystify this topic for you. I'll give you a few of the questions that you expect in the national exams from this topic. So cell physiology, first of all, physiology is a branch of science. And so when we combine cell and physiology, we need to define what cell physiology is. So cell physiology is the study of cell functions. Remember, there are functions that take place inside the cells. And these functions, we can just take a look at a few. Don't forget that all functions that takes place in living organisms occur at cell level. At cell level. And we have looked at some of the functions that takes place in the organisms. For example, we have photosynthesis. And then we have reproduction, for example. Reproduction. We have, just to list a few, we have excretion. We have protein synthesis, for example. Protein synthesis. Then we have maybe respiration. You know them. Respiration. These are just a few of the functions that takes place in living organisms. So they will take place in living organisms, yes, but they will function, or these will be successful at the cell level. Now, those functions will require raw materials, and I will still list for you a few raw materials that are necessary for the functions that we have talked about up there. We have carbon dioxide. For example, in the process of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide, which is CO2, is a raw material. We have another raw material called oxygen. If it is the process of respiration, we will have a raw material we call oxygen. Then we have mineral salts. We have glucose, for example. Glucose, just to name a few. Now, when we talk about raw materials, these are materials that will be used in the cellular activities. And they will be required inside the cell. And that is why I've written raw materials into the cells. And then after the raw materials have entered the cells and the activities of the cells have been complete, what happens is we produce, or the cells are going to produce waste, or what we can call waste products. So these are wastes, and as the term suggests, they have to be removed. These wastes have to be removed, because they are not supposed to be left to accumulate inside the cells, because they are harmful. Don't forget, that is now the process of excretion. Now, in this chapter, we shall be looking at which processes, and of course they are three, that will facilitate movement of materials in and out of the cell. For example, if carbon dioxide is required to enter the cell, how is it going to enter? If we have to remove the wastes from the cells after the cellular activities, how do we get rid of these? Remember, all this time we're talking about raw materials entering the cell and waste products leaving the cell. This movement is across the cell membrane. So they are going to pass across, or through the cell membrane. The cell membrane. So at that point, before we talk about the three cell physiological processes, we'll talk about the properties of the cell membrane. Properties of the cell membrane. When we talk about properties of the cell membrane, we have three of them. And in this case, we're talking about the features. When you say properties, it's like you're saying features of the cell membrane. The first one is semi-permeability. Semi-permeability. So this is a property, number one, that is also referred to as selectively permeable. When we say that the cell membrane is semi-permeable, we mean it is selectively permeable. This means it has tiny pores. It has tiny pores that only allow, and you see only is in capital letters and underlined, small moleculed substances to pass across. In other words, it prevents large molecules, large-sized molecules from passing across it. An example of those small molecule substances that can be allowed to pass either into the cell or out of the cell is water molecules, for example. Water molecules. They are so small, so much so that they can pass across. So we say the cell membrane is semi-permeable or selectively permeable. I don't want to forget to remind you that the cell wall that is found in plant cells has an opposite kind of characteristic or feature, whereby while the cell membrane is semi-permeable, the cell wall is fully permeable. Fully permeable means it allows all molecules to pass across it. What does it mean? It has large pores. Large pores. This one can allow things like sugar molecules, salts. So like sugar molecules can pass across them, across the cell membrane, because they have large pores. That is the difference between the cell wall and cell membrane. You'll say the cell membrane is selectively permeable or semi-permeable, while the cell wall is fully permeable. And remember, the cell wall is only found in plant cells. Property number 2, sensitivity to changes in temperature and pH. So this is the second property, and in this case we say the cell membrane is sensitive. The cell membrane is sensitive to changes in temperature and pH. How? This is because it contains, the cell membrane contains proteins which are adversely affected by extreme changes in temperature, and pH. So if you are asked to explain why or what makes the cell membranes to be sensitive to changes in temperature and pH, you just say presence of the proteins. The cell membrane has got proteins that makes it sensitive to changes in temperature and pH. The third property, polarization. In other words, the cell membrane is polarized. This means it possession, actually let me not use the term it, possession of electric charges. When we say that the cell membrane is polarized, we mean it possesses electric charges. That is positive and negative charges. Positive and negative charges. This enables the cell membrane to detect changes in the environment. This enables it. That is now the cell membrane enables it to detect changes in the environment. So that is what we mean by polarization. Don't forget, we have done sensitivity to changes in temperature and pH. We've talked about the protein layers, or the proteins that are found in the cell membrane. We've also done selectively permeable, that means semi-permeable, and finally it is polarized. So we have three properties of the cell membrane. Now, as I come to the end of this video, we have three physiological processes that we shall be looking at. The first one is diffusion, double F. The second one is going to be osmosis. And then the last one is active transport. So these are the three physiological processes. So meet me in the next video. It shall be about diffusion. See you, and let us continue working together.